So, Steve, do you want to bring? I think we've got Jordan Mitchell first of all. Evening, Jordan.
Hi, Ricky. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Good. So, what have you got for me? Nice fish tank, by the way.
Thank you very much. First of all, I want to talk about oxygen levels in a koi pond.
Yeah.
So, can you have too much oxygen going into a pond? And does ultimately this cause issues like swim bladder problems or gas bubble issues on the fins of the fish?
Yeah. Easy answer. Yes, you can. And yes, it will cause trouble if you get to that point. The likelihood of many people actually getting to that point, however, is very, very, very slim. Right. It's something I've not seen a lot over years. You know, very new ponds, you know, when you fill up with sort of fresh water and there's no organic hindrance, there's no other matter in the system, there's been no fish, no bacteria consuming oxygen. That's the point where you can often see when you've just filled up, you get a lot of tiny little gas bubbles kicking about. But very, very quickly that sort of dissipates and yeah, you're back to sort of usual levels. So I've very, very rarely seen that happen over all the time I've been doing this. So yes, you can, but the likelihood of it very, very slim, in my opinion.
Yeah, thank you. Water testing. So there's a lot of test kits on the market now than what there were when I first started in the koi hobby, really.
Yeah.
Basically, there's obviously the liquid test kits, the new digital readers like the Hannah checkers.
Yeah.
Which one would you say would be more accurate? You see, I like to use liquid test kits.
Yeah. For what reason?
I just think, well, I just like looking at the chart, to be honest with you. A bit of scientific experimenting going on.
I'm glad you've sort of asked this, and this is probably going to go on a bit more of a tangent here. But for me, just the simple liquid test kits, you need to make sure you get a good one because some of them can give dicky readings. I've known that over the years. Yeah, sorry, Steve. We'll get to some of them questions in a little bit if you jog me on. Yeah, so make sure you get a good one. I use the Colombo test kit at the minute brand. I've quite like NT Labs from the past as well. But I tend to use Colombo these days. For me, I'm not into all this digital testing and all the rest of it for two reasons. One, not got time. You know, from our side of it, we're talking 60 ponds, testing all that lot with digital meters. It's going to be just so much work. I can't even begin to imagine. And for what I would consider to be a pretty pointless exercise, to be honest. Because what you get for me, obviously, it's about simplicity and it's about finding the method that is the sort of mass market method that's easy and accessible for everybody. Now, digital meters typically are a lot more expensive, so they're not as accessible for everybody. And when, in my opinion, ultimately all you need to see is that on a liquid test kit, for example, you've got ammonia and you've got nitrite shown at 0. So if that's as good as damn it to 0, you don't need something digital telling you there's 0.02 milligram per litre of nitrite in your water.
Yeah.
That them kind of levels that'll read will show us 0 on a liquid test kit. And that's all you need to know. The unfortunate thing I've seen this so many times in the past with digital meters. I actually remember dealing with a client when I was working the shop. And he kept talking to me about this ammonia reading he was having, and absolutely constantly. And it wasn't until a lot further down the conversation I got out that he was using a digital meter. So what actually is this ammonia reading? And it was a 0.0 whatever it was at the time. I said, so basically then it's 0 because you're never going to get complete 0 ammonia in a pond that's got fish in that's being fed. It's an impossibility. So I tend to think the digital ones can lead to people, completely overanalyzing it and driving themselves a little bit potty, to be honest with you. And that kind of stuff scares me because you start mucking around, making decisions and altering things that don't need to be messed around with. So I'm a massive advocate for the liquid. It tells you everything you need to know. You just don't need the massive accuracies. Might be something pH. I can get it with a pH pen. The pH ones can be quite hard to read, but ultimately all you need to know with your pH is that you've got it stable.
Yeah.
You know that it's not a case of, you need to know exactly what the pH reading is. As long as you can roughly tell it. The big thing with pH is stability. So again, the color ones are going to know, because you're going to know from one test to the next if that's changing or swinging. KH, best method is the liquid. I'm not sure it's actually the only method out there for it. So for me, unless you're into the real sciencey side, laboratory side, and all the rest of it, I just don't see any point in the digital ones, other than people wanting to know something they don't really know, to be honest.
Yeah. Is that the same for like testing? A lot of people seem to look at TDS as well within the ponds. Is that another thing that you wouldn't concentrate
I
on?
remember the last time I tested TDS, Jordan, to be honest with you. I know a few people's been touching on this one, but again, it's getting into the realms of just massively overcomplicating stuff. Come back. Obviously, the digital meter is your only method for testing that. So if that's the route you're going down, as with salt as well, you can get salinity meters, but the digital ones are just far better and easier in them cases. But yeah, TDS, I see so many people hung up on managing that, when I'd rather be more focused on the feeding regime and the water temperatures and all the rest of it. And you got someone getting hung up on keeping the TDS low, then possibly not feeding the fish enough to actually grow them and raise them properly. If you get where I'm coming from.
Yeah. So keeping it simple is key, really.
It's too easy. What I see a lot of is people analysing one particular area when it's about the whole picture of everything in order to achieve them results. When you're fighting the battle against TDS, ultimately it's meaning changing a lot of water to keep that level down. So you either keep it down by not introducing, too much waste, so i.e. not too much food, which in the realms of raising fish, you're just not going to get the results. Or then ultimately, if you are doing that, it's putting a lot of fresh water through your system as well. And that comes on to a whole other conversation, to be honest with you. Something we're doing some work with for Koi Talk at the minute, is because water purification and mains water and the trickle out method is something we're seeing create so many problems. And that all coming down to the serious lack of sort of knowledge and understanding there is out there about it, but actually seeing it all doing more harm than good in a lot of ways, fish health wise, certainly from a skin luster and sort of condition wise as well. So again, my advocate, you'll hear me drum on about it, keep it simple. And for me, there's more things I'd be worried about than making sure. I mean, some of the TDS monitoring I see and the obsession with it, it's crazy in my opinion. And proof being in the pudding. I can't remember. It was decades ago that I last tested it, and just look what I'm doing with the fish. You've probably seen the results in my videos.
Look at the Hyatt series, for example.
It speaks for itself. One of those heel saw, he grew 43 centimeters in a season, and we're talking, heavy stocking, heavy everything. It just get the rule book and set it on fire, basically.
Yeah.
So, but my focus is a lot on the food, the regime, what the fish need, and then making the environment work around it, to be honest with you. I do know, obviously, excessive high TDS, but that from when we're talking from a hardness perspective, when it's coupled in that whole package, super hard water, I have seen that have an adverse effect on fish. But we've got pretty decent mains water. It's pretty neutral. Doesn't swing one way or the other too much, and it works a treat.
Yeah. I've got another question regarding DPD4 tablets.
Yeah.
So I know that they check for chlorine. Now there's a lot of like mixed opinions and thoughts on DPD4 tablets, as in, do they check for chlorine and chloramines in the water?
I'm gonna cut you off there, Jordan, a little bit, because it's not something I've ever used. I know of people using them.
Right.
To be honest with you, or if we often, I'd change the purifiers regularly, but the bit of checking we'll do if I do, this is one bit I contradict myself a little bit. I have got one of the little Hannah pocket testers for chlorine, which is quite handy. But yeah, the DPD4, from what they tell you what you need to know. If there's something tracing and showing up on it, you need to change your cartridges. But likewise, I'd be wanting to change the cartridges as frequently as I can anyway, not leaving it to the last minute.
So how often would you recommend changing your cartridges?
You need to, obviously, all of your cartridges. Seen the wife's watching again. Making sure I've got everything in order. You can't, obviously, every cartridge is spec'd differently, and it's something that really needs to be paid attention to. Again, having some test method like the tablets is a great indicator, but you want to keep on top of them. Again, depending on you've got the carbon blocks, metals cartridges will have different specifications, but yeah, a lot more frequently than what they generally say. Don't max a cartridge out right to the last minute, because you don't know, if you're just going to tip over that edge. And this is something, the reason why we're doing the research, because it was years back, a woman called Anne Telford. I'm not sure how many people are aware of, and she was absolutely brilliant with all the water equipment. And she's not been about. We've not been able to get hold of her for a while, but some of the stuff I learned from her back then about how inefficient a lot of the purifiers actually were on the market because of the level of variables, the amount of chlorine, the levels, the water temperatures, the levels of chloramine in there, and then with metals cartridges in particular, carbon blocks versus granular carbon in big blues, and the grade of the carbon and how effective that is. So much to it, and this is one of the reasons why I think we're seeing so many issues coming from people who are trickling quite large amounts of water, because even though they think they're purifying it well, they're actually not, and they're not set up well enough to defend against big surges in chemicals put into water by water companies as and when it happens. And the metal side of it even bigger, because it's only stuff you can typically test for if you're having it done at laboratory level. So tricky things, purifiers. That's not an easy question to answer, to be honest. But all I know is they expire a lot faster than most people think. The one thing I did pick up from her at the time is a lot of these cartridges are quoted for US situations and US setups, and that the capacity drastically alters when they get back to the UK and for our mains water. So just sit tight on that one, because we're trying to get the proper answers for people, because I really think this is a big topic that needs addressing overall in regards to mains water and purification.